Virgin Most Powerful Radio, sharing the gospel with clarity and charity.
And now, Virgin Most Powerful Radio is pleased to present Hands-On Apologetics with renowned Catholic author and apologist, Gary Michuta.
And welcome, everybody. Hands-On Apologetics. You have entered into Virgin Most Powerful's Apologetics Dojo, and it's great to be with you today. And no, there's no voting booths here in the dojo, but nevertheless, we are going to load you up with lots of things to think about and share on your way to vote. And that's because we're going to talk about, I think, a great unidentified heresy that has been affecting the church over several decades. And the strange thing is, it really hasn't been identified and named, at least not that I know of. And that's this belief that Catholic teaching may be true, may be good, but it really has no benefits to the outside secular world. In other words, that you could be a good Catholic, Orthodox, go to church regularly, but does Catholic doctrine really benefit humanity? Or is it just a religious belief that isn't supposed to play any role in the secular city? Well, I think that's a heresy that affects both Orthodox and heterodox people, faithful Catholics and not faithful. It's so easy for us to pick and choose which things we want to believe, but I still think there's this social barrier that a lot of Catholics deep down don't think that the Church's core moral teachings have any real benefit in the world. Otherwise, they would use it to inform the world, to transform the world. And so we've let secularism push us back. You're not allowed to bring your religion into the voting booths. You're not allowed to bring your religion into the marketplace. Eventually will be only allowed to religion will only extend as far as the walls of our churches. And so we need to realize this heresy and fight against it, because Christ is the king of the universe. Christ is the creator of the universe. And so Christ's teachings are beneficial because they allow us to act in accord with how things truly are. And although it may not be easy in every case, it is beneficial. And so we're going to be talking about bringing the faith into the voting booth. And to help us do that, we have our very good friend, master apologist, Steve Ray, is going to be coming on the show after the first break. We're going to be talking about all sorts of issues, and especially, the Catholic vote. So if you're a big Steve Ray fan like I am, you definitely want to check that out. Tell your friends, especially those friends that aren't really sure who to vote for or how to vote. They'll want to hear Steve Ray on the other side of the break. That's going to be a ton of fun. Also, on this side of the break, we're going to have our Finding the Fallacy segment. And today's Finding the Fallacy is the Courtier's Reply Fallacy. And also, we meet an early church father. Today's early church father is a pope, Pope Celestine I. So we got lots and lots of really cool stuff in store in the dojo. And as always, I like to begin the program by welcoming you all back on, starting with those on Facebook, YouTube, live stream, folks. Welcome aboard, folks. Great to have you with us. Also, I want to welcome all of you who are listening on radio around the country and also via podcast around the world through either our handy-dandy phone app or our flagship flamethrower website, which is virginmostpowerfulradio.org. And so big day and big time to evangelize, share the faith, appeal for the truth, appeal for morality, and do that on social media. So please tell people about Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Tell them about the program. Also, smash that subscribe button and like and bell and all the other stuff out there because that helps with visibility. It helps spread the word. And if you are a veteran listener to the program, you know that is why we get up every morning, is make Jesus better known and loved. And it's the best thing you could possibly do in life. I mean, it's exciting. It's there's nothing. It's a lot more exciting to be in the fray than to be sitting on the sidelines. And if you're going to defend and share the faith, especially on social media, folks, you're going to be in the fray. So anyway, thank you so much for all of you who have subscribed. And please, if you haven't subscribed, please do. By the way, we have a separate Hands-On Apologetics channel there on YouTube under the Virgin Most Powerful Radio. And if you haven't subscribed, please do, because we're really close to 1,000. And if we could get a few more subscribers, we can get over that hilltop. And that opens all sorts of possibilities in terms of support for the radio station. So we truly, truly appreciate all your help. And it doesn't cost anything. It's just a click of a button away. You can help us to help others. All right, without further ado, why don't we jump into our Finding the Fallacy segment, which is the Courtier's Reply Fallacy. The Courtier's Reply is a type of informal fallacy. It's coined by the American biologist P.Z. Myers, in which a respondent to criticism claimed that the critic lacks sufficient knowledge, credentials, or training to pose any sort of criticism whatsoever. So basically, it's a way to silence opposition by claiming that the person who is making the objection simply isn't lettered. Don't have the proper credentials, don't have the proper knowledge base. In fact, essentially saying that you're dumb. Okay. And of course, this is a fallacy because it's something of a non sequitur. I mean, even if somebody isn't credentialed and has been specially trained on a particular issue, that doesn't mean that any criticisms they will give is invalid, nor does it mean that the criticism given is false. It just means that perhaps the person just didn't have a lot of background, but you can still make a true objection without all the credentials. So the Courtier fallacy is essentially a way to discredit the objector rather than addressing the objection. So in a sense, it's also similar to an ad hominem fallacy. My way to diffuse this fallacy is quite simple. I just say, look, okay, granted, of course, you want to absorb it. Say, granted, let's say I'm not credentialed, as you say, and this really is a dumb objection. Well, you, who are the expert, shouldn't have any problem whatsoever explaining why this objection is false. And that way you redirect, you focus it on the objection itself. And it makes a lot of sense, too. If they are so smart and you are so dumb, right, it should be a piece of cake for them to tear an objection apart. And that way you get off of this Courtier fallacy and you redirect it to examining the truth. And that's really the ultimate bottom line, is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help us God. Also, let's jump to the Meet the Early Church Father for today. Is Pope Celestine I. Actually, we're not going to rely on Jurgen's Faith of Early Fathers here. We're going to go with the Catholic Encyclopedia 1917 edition, which is a very good reference work. And it says, concerning Pope Celestine I, that nothing is known of his early history except that he was a Roman and that his father's name was Priscus. He is said to have lived for a time in Milan with St. Ambrose. The first notice, however, concerning him that is known is in a document of Pope St. Innocent I in the year 416, where he is spoken of as Celestine the Deacon. In 418, St. Augustine wrote him in very reverential language. He succeeded Pope Boniface I as Pope on September 10th, 422. He died July 26, 432, after reigning 9 years, 10 months, and 16 days. Now, his pontificate was during a very tumultuous time, especially at Rome. However, interesting enough, he was elected without any opposition. as is learned from a letter of St. Augustine written to him shortly after his elevation, in which the great doctor begs his assistance in composing his difficulties with Antonius, the bishop of Fassula in Africa. A strong friendship seems to have existed between Celestius and Augustine, and after the death of the latter in 430, Celestine wrote a long letter to the bishops of Gaul on the sanctity, learning, and zeal of the holy doctor, and forbade all attacks on his memory on the part of the semi-Pelagians, who, under the leadership of the famous ascetic John Cassian, were then beginning to gain influence. Though his lot was cast in stormy times, for example, he had to battle the Manichaeans, the Donatists, the Novatians, and the Pelagians, who were all disturbing the peace within the church. You also have the barbarian hordes that were beginning to make inroads into the heart of the empire. Celestine's firm but gentle character enabled him to meet successfully all the exigencies of his position. We see him everywhere upholding the rights of the church and the dignity of his office. Now this is interesting. The last official act of Pope Celestine was to send St. Patrick to Ireland, which of course surpasses in terms of its far-reaching consequences all the other acts that he may have done. Excuse me. He had also sent Palladius as bishop to the Scots, that is the Irish, believing in Christ. But Palladius' son abandoned Ireland, died the year following in Britain. So St. Patrick, who had previously been refused, now received the long-coveted commission only a few days before the death of Celestine. And therefore, that the rest is history, so to speak. And that's our early church father for today, Pope Celestine I. Coming up next, we have Master Apologist Steve Ray. Stay tuned, everybody.
If you shop on Amazon.com, there's an easy way to support Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Just visit smile.amazon.com and type in Catholic Resource Center under the desired charity. Now, when you log into your Amazon account and purchase products, a portion of it will automatically go to support Virgin Most Powerful Radio at no cost to you. Thanks in advance for supporting CRC and VMPR, and may God richly bless you and your family.
Did you know my mom's gonna have a baby?
She is? Will it be a boy?
Or will it be a girl? We don't know yet, but we heard the heartbeat and my dad said this is gonna be someone very special.
You mean like being a president?
Or maybe a doctor. Well, probably maybe like a singer or dancer, I think.
Hello, my name is Marianne Koharski. I'm the director of Pro-Life Across America. We know that every baby is a miracle and has the potential to do great things. If you know someone who is pregnant or in need of alternatives or assistance, or would like to support the work of Pro-Life Across America, please call 1-800-366-7773 or visit our website at prolifeacrossamerica.org. Pro-Life Across America is non-political and totally educational.
Pro-Life Across America, the Billboard people.
This is Terry Barber. I want to thank you for your support here at Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Here's an easy way to do it. If you're going to sell or buy a house, call Real Estate for Life, 877-543-3871, because they're going to get you a Christ-centered agent to purchase your home or to sell your home. And at the close of escrow, a portion of his commission goes right back to Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Call 877-543-3871. Thank you so much for your support.
Now, back to Hands on Apologetics with Gary Machuda. If you'd like to join the conversation, call 888-526-2151. Here's Gary.
And welcome back, everybody. Hands on Apologetics. And it is November 3rd. And here in America, that means it's election day, time to vote. And how should we vote as Catholics? What are the issues that are on the table? Well, we have our good friend and a person I greatly admire, Steve Ray, with us. Steve, of course, is a convert to the Catholic faith. He is a defender of the faith. He's the author of several books, and you can check out all the great stuff he does at CatholicConvert.com. And Steve Ray, welcome to Hands on Apologetics.
Thank you, Gary. Just making sure I don't have any lettuce in my teeth. I just finished eating a quick salad before I jumped on here with you. I was
over you look good.
babysitting for my daughter so she could go out and vote. And my son Jesse was at the big Kenosha, Wisconsin rally last night with my grandkids. So it's been a busy place around here.
Awesome. Well, yeah. So it sounds like the Ray household is buzzing with activity.
Yep, and I would say that everybody should get out and vote because it's really important. This election is a very, very important election. If you care about morality and the unborn and sanity, get out and vote. Make sure you don't pass up this opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't we begin by talking about, getting down to the basics. Why should a Catholic vote?
Let me say it this way, Gary. I'm personally opposed to slavery, but I don't want to take away the slave owners' rights to own human beings. So, that's how I'm going to vote here. I'm going to vote to not step on the toes of slave owners, but I am personally opposed to slavery myself.
Okay. Yeah, I love that position. So, yeah, you're personally opposed, but far be it from you to prevent anybody else from being slave owners.
Oh yes, we definitely shouldn't hinder people from owning slaves. Now I know this it sounds so rude or crude even, but the fact is in 1857, the Dred Scott case, the Supreme Court ruled that black people were not able to be citizens of the United States because it would steal the property of slave owners. It would keep slave owners from owning their property. Now, that caused the Civil War. Roughly 10 years later, the Civil War erupted over that, and it said black people were obviously human beings made in the image of God like the rest of us are, which should be obvious to everyone, and therefore they were able to be citizens of the United States. Now we come to our lifetime, and the Supreme Court again rules that a whole class of human beings are not human beings. People with red blood cell pumping through their veins, their hearts beating, feel pain. They are human in every aspect, and yet we have now considered them by a Supreme Court ruling, Roe versus Wade, that whole class of human beings are not human beings and can be killed at will, which is even in some ways worse than slavery, because in slavery, it wasn't mass slaughter of innocent people. What's in abortion going on is the mass slaughter of humanity, of human beings, the most innocent of all human beings. And so these politicians, especially these Catholic politicians that make me want to retch. I have to be honest, Gary, you've never known me to mince my words or to not say what I think. Frankly, I don't work for anybody, so I can be honest about, I don't have to worry about my boss calling me in and saying, Steve, you're a little bit stepping over the line there. I don't work for anybody but the Lord. And at this moment, I work for you for the next 40 minutes, in a way. And I won't say and do anything here to get you in trouble. But for those who are going around acting like the slave owners of the century before, saying, I'm personally opposed to abortion, but I don't want to push my morality in anybody else. And we have to consider all of these other moral issues as equally valid Yes, we have other. I have a list of some of them here. We're dealing with racism, gun ownership, and some the gun ownership. Of course, I own guns. This is a matter of prudential. The United States has always, and Catholics have always given the green light to this. This is something that has always been understood in our country. But racism, immigration, poverty, homelessness, medical care, pornography, war, end-of-life issues, abortion, euthanasia, human trafficking, and we could go on and on and on. There are a lot of moral issues. The human trafficking is just so horrendous. All of these are issues that we need to deal with. But my contention, Gary, is that the basis for all of these, the reason that we're concerned about immigration and the reason we're concerned about homelessness and medical care and poverty is because we think the human person has value. All of our laws are based on human value, whether it's property rights or gun rights or anything else. It's on people saying, I have value because I'm made in the image of God. I have personal importance. If you do away with the value of the human person, then there is no need for any concern about these other things. They're all subsidiaries of the human person. So when we look at this election, and we have to really be concerned because there are so many, and especially Catholics, who have been out there touting the fact, and we have a presidential candidate saying that he is a practicing Catholic in good order with the Catholic Church, and yet who is going to get into office and promote abortion, the mass slaughter of human beings, even up to the point of birth. And there are many now that want to even say that after a baby's born, as long as you make them comfortable, you can assassinate them after their birth if you decide at that late moment not to keep the baby. This has no place, not just in Catholic thinking, but in human thinking. It is inhumane, and it is as bad or worse than owning slavery. And yet, if today we own slaves in this country, it would be a one-issue voting issue. Everybody would be voting on the issue of slavery, yes or no. And human slaughter of babies is every bit as horrendous or worse. And I am dismayed that so few have made that the main issue.
Yeah, I love that that comparison. I think it's a really good parallel with slavery and abortion, because you could think of all these. You could plug one into the other. For example, well, okay, if the slaves are made comfortable, then I'm okay if they go into slavery. Or if giving up slaves would be too much of an economic burden, then I think people should own slaves. Or if it's going to impede somebody's ability to have education, they should have slaves. No one in their right mind, Steve, would ever go for something like that.
No.
Yet those same arguments are used for abortion.
Exactly. And it's interesting that we have both slavery and then a Supreme Court decision that validated it, and then a war that started afterwards over it. And now we have a Supreme Court ruling that validates the slaughter of humans through abortion. And it could bring a war in our country as well. Our country is more fractured right now and more divided than I've ever seen it in my lifetime. I don't know that it's ever been this divided since the Civil War. And I'm afraid that if the whole Democrat, Republican, abortion, non-abortion, all of these moral issues were a geographical division, I am afraid that our country would go to war over it. But right now, there's, all this. It's all mixed in the states, except for New York and California. They seem to be kind of geographically located and Midwestern in many ways. But if this was really a geographical north and south again, or east and west, I would fear for the safety of our country that there would be a war. And yet I know that my children and grandchildren are not going to live in the same world that I lived in, and there is a great potential for problems in this country because of the great moral divide on many of these issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And you pointed out already one of those issues is the difference between picking out the primary issues, such as life, versus what's sometimes called the seamless garment idea, that there are equivalent values that should be weighed as well. And I like what you said on that.
Well, the positive side of the seamless garment, and I think when Cardinal, what's his name, Chicago, it just slipped my mind. No, the one before. Cardinal George. I'm sorry. My wife is in the background listening here. She's always my co-pilot. Cardinal George, actually it was before him even, it was Cardinal Bernardine. When he came up and kind of popularized the seamless garment, he wasn't saying that all of them were equal, because I read an interview that he gave where he said that abortion took pride of place. That was still the priority among the issues. But seamless garment is good in the sense that it says we're dealing with a lot of issues. All of them are important. We shouldn't, as Catholics, just latch onto one issue and ignore the rest. I wrote it out this way: to deal consistently with the whole spectrum of ethics related to human beings, not just abortion, war, human trafficking, workers' rights, homelessness, or abortion or something else. That we have really a lot of issues that we have to address and deal with. However, I think a lot of people now are using that as a cover, as a smokescreen. People who may not like Donald Trump's hairstyle or his personality or his tweeting, or they may think he's not classy enough to be president, or he's not politically astute enough to be president, and they don't like him. I know people that just despise Trump. They could not vote for Trump no matter what was happening, no matter if Hitler was the other party. They still couldn't vote for Trump because they hate the man so much. I don't understand it, but I like him, frankly. But the whole attitude is that, well, all these issues are important, and yes, Donald Trump has done more for the pro-life cause than any president in history. He's the only one that's ever been to a pro-life rally in Washington. He's done more to help the unborn than anybody else. But, there's all these other issues, and we have to consider all these issues together. And in a way, this seamless garment of Christ, meaning that it's all of these issues cover the body of Christ. We have to work about all of them. I think today it's being used as a smokescreen or as a cover so that Catholics who don't like Trump feel that they can, with a clear conscience, vote for the Democratic Party, even though they're going to slaughter babies at a much greater degree, and they're going to do everything they can to put judges in that will continue to make this. Because abortion, I'm concluded that abortion is the primary sacrament of the liberal left. We have the Eucharist, the body of Christ. I think that the sacrament, and don't ever think that secular humanism is not a religion. It is an atheistic, materialistic religion that now is moving towards socialism and Marxism. It is very much a religion, philosophical religion. And the very fact that people are going in that direction and being willing to vote that way just because they don't like Trump, or they don't like something about the Republican Party, or we've always voted Democratic, I think is a very scary thing. And the seamless garment, although I agree we have to be concerned about all the moral issues, there are some, like the bishops said in their last meeting, the bishops of the United States, 63 of them objected, but the majority of them said abortion is the preeminent issue of our day.
A great man once said that evil is powerless if the good are unafraid. Well, you and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness. We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars. And it's been said, if we lose this war, and in so doing lose this great way of freedom of ours, history will report with the greatest astonishment that those that had the most to lose did the least to prevent it from happening. Well, I think it's high time now that we ask ourselves if we still even know the freedoms that were intended for us by our founding fathers. Every generation of Americans needs to know that freedom exists, not to do what you like, but having the right to do what you ought. You weren't made to fit in, my brothers and sisters. You are born to stand out. Set yourself apart from this corrupt generation. Be saints. God bless you.
In 1 Corinthians 13:13, St. Paul says, "So there abide faith, hope, and love, these three." According to St. Ignatius of Antioch, faith is the beginning and love is the end. And God is the two of them brought into unity. Then comes everything else that makes up a Christian. May God grant that we may attain all the virtues that make for authentic followers of His Son.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show. And they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow! That's 80%! realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
This is Jesse Romero. You're listening to Hands-On Apologetics with Gary Machuda on Virgin Most Powerful Radio.
And welcome back, everybody. We're chatting with Master Apologist Steve Ray about the Catholic vote. And Steve, actually, I have a thought for you. You mentioned how, the abortion issue is really primary because it's really on the right to life that every other right depends upon. And by allowing abortion, that it denigrates the human dignity, which involves the denigration of society and looking at each other as, political things to be used. My question is, if society deteriorates to such a point, I mean, you mentioned even the possibility of even a civil war. For a Catholic, I just don't understand how people could hate, politicians, like you mentioned before, that there are people that so hate President Trump that they despise him. But didn't Christ say that we should love our enemies and pray for them? And it just seems so counterintuitive for a Catholic. That doesn't mean you have to agree with them, but
right.
To hate just seems to be against the gospel. Does that make sense?
I think what people would say is I hate what he stands for, but I really do think that there are people that hate Trump. I know somebody who despises him so much she can't even look me in the eye. She can't even, if we're in the same room, I fear for my life because she knows I like Trump.
Yeah.
But I agree with you, the whole attitude of hate. I don't see that among us, and I'm going to say Republicans or the right, and everybody knows what I mean by that. I hate labels, but labels are very helpful. We need labels, obviously. I see a conservative as one who wants to conserve. Very simply, what is a conservative? There's somebody who wants to conserve what we have. They want to conserve the Constitution, our moral foundations, our Christian heritage. We want to conserve the value of human life. We're conservatives in these areas. A liberal is one who wants to liberate people from these things. Be liberal with that. Don't hold to the things that we've held to that have proved to work well in society in the past. We want to liberate, be free of all of that, and just run. And many of those are anarchists, then they end up becoming like that. But I agree with you about the hate, that we should not be controlled by hatred. I may dislike what the Democratic Party and Biden and Kamala, I may disagree with what they say. I may despise and hate what they believe and what they're trying to impose upon our country. But I can't say that I hate Biden, that I hate Kamala. I see them as people made in the image of God. I would pray for them and for their conversion and so on, but I can't say that I hate these people. One of the things, Gary, I was thinking, and it seems to me ironic the way natural law works and the way people work. It's ironic justice in a sense. In a generation ago, people decided that human beings in the womb were not of any value. They were not viable. I remember the term being used, they were not viable life until they get born. And so we said that at that end, at the beginning of the human life spectrum, they're not viable. So they can be eliminated. Now that generation is getting older, and they're at the other end of the life spectrum. And the younger generation is going to say, well, you're not viable. What are you doing? You're sitting in a wheelchair. You're sitting in an old folks' home. You're laying in a hospital bed. What good are you? You already taught us that human life can be extinguished if it's not viable or being productive. Well, you're not being viable in the old folks' home, and you're costing us a lot of money, and you're making trouble for us, so we're going to get rid of you now at that end of the life scale, the life spectrum. And that's what we're seeing already, this whole euthanasia, putting people to sleep, putting people who are ill, have terminal illness, who are mentally incapable of functioning anymore on their own. And we are now talking about eliminating them at the other end of the life spectrum. But it's interesting to me that that generation now that's beginning to happen to were the very ones that said human life wasn't of value when they were younger, at the beginning of life spectrum. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's true. Oh, absolutely.
And there's a certain ironic justice. And if you want to see where we're going to go with this, you look at Holland already. Holland is already well practicing the whole thing of euthanasia. In fact, they just passed a law, if I remember right, and I think I read this carefully, that now up until 12 years old, you can decide to terminate a life if they have terminal illness, or if they're in pain, or there is some overarching medical reason. You can actually euthanize a child up until 12 years old. The courts and the legislature said that's possible. Also, they're doing it at the other end of life. And yet, even in Europe, they do not have the legalized, for any reason, abortions that we do. You can only have an abortion up to 3 months in the womb. We are so radical in our abortion in this country that we're ahead of Europe.
Wow. Yeah, that says a lot. And, Steve, once you unanchor what is the value and dignity of human life from nature, and it becomes arbitrary. It's whoever has the power to draw the lines will draw the lines. And you have to look at the Nazis with their sterilization and elimination program, where at first it was only serious illnesses, mentally ill people. Then it began broader and broader till eventually they started labeling political ideas as a kind of mental illness.
Yep.
And so they were getting rid of political enemies under the guise of this, so-called mercy killing.
Yeah, that's not far away in our country either. The hatred on the left is so strong, I think, that they could actually start viewing us who hold to these archaic, uneducated positions like that human life is of value or that God exists. We could be viewed as being mentally ill too, because we are not keeping up with the modern psychology and science of the day, and the whole liberal left is pushing that. Look at the media, all of the big tech companies, it's unbelievable, the forces that are arrayed against Christians and the morality and the Constitution that you and I have grown up with. And it just seemed normal. I used to say I pledge of allegiance to the flag when I was a boy every day in school. And now we've got people that won't even say that at baseball games, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, well, let's look at a possible objection. Someone could say, well, how do I know that if I vote for Trump, that what guarantee do I have that he would govern correctly, or for that matter, that Biden wouldn't govern correctly?
Well, I think if you were talking about this 4 years ago about Trump, a lot of people were hesitant about him and said he was always pro-choice in his early years. And so he's just saying this to get the conservative Christian Protestant Catholic vote. And he has no record of this at all, even though he was telling us that he had changed his position. Now we are 4 years later, and we can see that there's never been a president that has been more pro-life than President Trump. And we watched Biden for 4 years, 47 years, and we've seen what Biden stands for. He stands for almost everything I oppose: socialism, taking away the Second Amendment, human life. I could go right down the list. And people who say that Trump, that it's a one-issue abortion, and you're forcing me as a Catholic to be a one-issue voter. on that issue, but I find that I agree with President Trump on a lot of these issues. I have to say I agree with him on almost everything. I don't agree with him on some things, but he's also against socialism. He's for people going out and getting work and not living on welfare. And that's also dealing with the dignity of the human being. A person is much more dignified when they're out working and providing for the family than when they're sitting home collecting a welfare check, feeling useless and inept. And who's the one that has never started a war? In his 4 years as being president, Donald Trump has not started one war. In fact, he's ended ISIS, which was slaughtering Christians all through the Middle East, and he is bringing our soldiers back home instead of sending all of our money being involved in the Middle East, where we have no business. And I can say from a person who spends a lot of my life in the Middle East that most of what we've done over there has been a disaster and has caused great grief and harm to people, the Christians especially. And so we are not forcing people to be a one-issue voter, because Donald Trump and the Republican Party now is much more in line with what we believe in than what the Democratic Party believes in. And I think that the Democratic Party has become a one-issue voting party because they are voting for abortion. That is their main sacrament. That's their main issue. If anybody denies it, go back and listen to the confirmation hearings for Judge Barrett and how often the abortion issue came up. Yes, also the Unaffordable Health Care Act. I say that with tongue in cheek, but it made health care unaffordable to a lot of us, myself included, and a lot of others lost our health insurance because of that to this day. Because I had a good health insurance, and they said because of Obamacare you no longer qualified, and I was paying my own, and they put it out of range for us. So all these issues, Trump is working to bring health care down. He's working to stop wars. I find that when I'm voting for Trump, it's not a one-issue vote. I'm voting for a lot of the things that I feel he is doing that are much more Christian and much more peace in the Middle East. My goodness, look at what he's done with I've been to those countries. I've been to Dubai and these countries, and you had never dreamed 4 years ago that they would be making peace with Israel.
Yeah.
This is unheard of, peace in the Middle East. Trump should get a Nobel Peace Prize. He got nominated 3 times for it. But, of course, he won't get it. But Obama, of course, got it before he did anything. So I don't think that the seamless garment issue holds on this one, because when you vote for the Republican Party today, I think you're voting for the things most Catholics should, and evangelicals agree that these are the things that we should be voting for. And the Democratic Party has a whole different idea of socialism, which is the Catholic Church has been against Marxism and socialism from the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, especially I think for Catholics, President Trump has a string of peace treaties and successes in terms of fostering concord among nations that, quite frankly, I don't think any previous president really has achieved as much as he has. And it's only just the one term.
Yep.
But I hear the music coming up, Steve. We're chatting with Master Apologist Steve Ray, talking about the Catholic vote. Stay tuned, folks.
We got Ernesto from Long Beach.
I just wanted to comment, and I just wanted to thank you guys. And I kind of wanted to encourage people that are listening, maybe that are not donating, because honestly, I got to be honest. I used to think you guys were a little
too over the top.
Yeah.
That's right.
If God gave us a lot, and I have the blessing of listening to all this. I just want to call all the people. I've got 5 kids, and I don't make a lot of money, and I'm still donating to you guys.
God bless you, brother. You're amazing.
We have to do this. We have to do the extra. And it's not even the extra. People see it like it's extra. Kneeling for communion, saying your rosary, saying the Divine Mercy Chaplet. It is not extra. It's what the church tells us to do.
Amen. You're a good man, brother.
30 years old, 29 years old, 5 kids, and I thank you guys. So everybody else, man, get on fire. Fight for the truth, man. I know what I'm telling you guys.
I love it.
Out there.
Our nation is too full of those that are crying down. Down with the police, down with the churches, down with teachers, down with government. Can you build anything down? You cannot. Certainly time in our nation to change our words. And let's begin now to use the word up. Up from all of this filth. Up from this violence. Up from this indifference of courts. Up to the hid battlements of eternity. Up to God.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show. And they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow, that's 80%. realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
Now, back to Hands-On Apologetics with Gary Machuda. If you'd like to join the conversation, call 888-526-2151. Here's Gary.
And welcome back, everybody, to Hands-On Apologetics, and we're chatting with our good friend Steve Ray about the Catholic vote. And Steve, here's something I'll throw out at you. People may be turned off by President Trump because he's quite aggressive and argumentative, and he kind of coarsens discourse, political discourse. How would you answer someone who would say that therefore he's really not fit to be president?
I would say that he's been put into a position of forced into a corner. Out here we live in the country, and I have to get rid of the raccoons because they mess up our house and they cause a lot of damage. And when I get a raccoon in a trap, that raccoon is not very friendly. And you could say, well, what kind, that raccoon is very nasty. We should get rid of him. Well, the whole society has pushed Trump into a corner, and us too as Catholics, by the way. Yeah. And the whole media has been against him. Even the Republican rhinos have been against him. The media, big tech, everybody is against him. And if you watch the news, they are majority, 90%, anti-Trump, and they're visceral about it. And he has been forced to tweet and to fight back. He's the kind of guy that even in business and any other way, he doesn't take it lying down. And I don't either. Anytime that anybody's ever written and criticized my books and given unjustified things, I always respond. I think it's the way it should be. Jesus didn't roll over and play dead either. He came right back at the Pharisees and said, you whitewashed sepulchers full of dead men's bones. And he grabbed a whip and he chased them out of the courtyard of the temple. Jesus, we always say, well, you should be like Jesus. He was nice. Nice? Was Jesus nice? No, he wasn't nice. He was loving and he told the truth when he needed to, and he was strong about it. And I think that's what Trump has done too. Yeah, he has a personality. He's a business guy. He's from New York. Okay, he grew up with a lot of the New York Jews in New York. And there was an article I read. I even actually put it up on my blog. You scroll down a few days about where he got his humor and his styles. He's a tough, rough New Yorker. I try to say it like they say it. And to try and understand his personality a little bit. And he's been feisty his whole life. And that's really why we elected him. We elected somebody who would go in like a bull in a china shop and change things because we're sick and tired of politicians. I have a brother who never voted in his life. He hasn't had a haircut in 30 years. He brags about it. And he went out and got registered 4 years ago. He says, because this is the first time I saw somebody running for president that wasn't a politician, and I thought he could do it. And now he's so excited to vote for him again this time. The hair down to here, motorcycle guy, and he's but he sees somebody who is not a politician, who's not just, you kind of put your finger and see which way the wind is blowing. Oh, I'll vote over here. Trump doesn't do that. He knows what's right, and that's what he votes. And he said what he was going to do, and he did what he said he was going to do. And he took care of religious freedom as another issue, not only in the United States, but he set up a commission to watch and to start working towards religious freedom around the world. And he's the one that defended the Sisters of the Poor and all of the other religious orders. That's why you find nuns coming out now to going to his rallies. We saw some nuns in the background at one of the rallies, and they got kind of whacked for it by a lot of people. Well, I wrote to those sisters and I said, thank you, God bless you. You have every right as anybody else to be involved in the political civil process as citizens of the United States. And they wrote back and said, thank you, Steve, that we have overwhelmingly had positive response for us being involved and being there voting for Trump. Now, I am very proud of a lot of priests and bishops who have stood up in the last month. I was disappointed up until a few weeks ago. There was like a silence. You could hear crickets. And I was disappointed in some, Supich and McElroy, who are the seamless garment guys. And I don't want to get you in trouble either, but I put up a blog just a couple days ago on Bishop Barron with a few comments about that. And I felt that his letter was kind of wishy-washy and left people covered to vote for Democrats if they want to. I think we should be clear about these matters. And I have been very proud, especially in the last couple of weeks, when I see priests coming out and teaching this in their homilies and bishops standing up and speaking. I got to praise Strickland. Boy, he's just coming on strong, and others as well. And I love these guys for doing that. Now, I know a Protestant pastor, I just heard this, that he said, I'm not going to talk about these issues in my sermons on Sunday because I would, no matter what I say, I'm going to alienate a third of my people. So he just avoids it. Well, I don't think that's what Jesus would do. Jesus would deal with the issues. What are the issues? And some of these priests at great risk to themselves are standing up now and speaking out about it. And I was at a homily, I tell who it was Our Lady of Good Counsel in Plymouth 2 weeks ago. And that priest got up, and I have to say, I was a little nervous at first when he started, we're going to talk about what we give to Caesar and what we give to God. And I'm, oh, no, boy, but his homily was stunning. And it was an outdoor parking lot mass, because of this virus hysteria. So when he got done with his homily, all the cars in the parking lot, honk, 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 they're honking their approval. See, a lot of times we get one liberal in the crowd who's got a loud, and they'll write and they'll give the priest a hard time, but he may not realize that 95% of the other people out there loved what he said, but we don't say anything. When our priests and our bishops say something, and when they stand up and do what's right and put their reputation at risk, we should go up and compliment them and let them know. And I make a point of doing that because I know a good priest, you know him too, here in Ann Arbor. He said, no matter what he does, he gets 10 criticisms to every 1 compliment. Yeah. That means that us silent majority ought to quit being silent, not only in praising people who do what's right, but come out strong against those who do what's wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Steve, I think there's kind of an anti-Catholic bat that whenever Catholics, especially clergy, do make statements about faith and how it involves politics. This club comes out, hits us over the head because now you're mixing politics and religion. But that's true only for Catholicism. There's no problem with candidates going in Baptist churches or synagogues, and they never get clubbed. Yeah.
Or a mosque.
Yeah, why is that?
A Muslim can be a Muslim and everybody praises them, and a Muslim can bring their Islam into whatever they're doing and nobody says a word about it. And Protestants can pretty much too. But the Catholic Church is the big enemy because we have a moral code. Protestants don't. Protestants are all over the board. I know that because I was one. You could go to a Protestant church, any kind you want. But Catholic, even though maybe we have some squirrely priests and bishops who think they can change, like guys like James Martin and others. I don't mind naming names. I'm sick and tired of people being ambiguous about it. I think we ought to name names and start calling people out, frankly. And we, as a Catholic Church, even though we have some of these squirrely priests and bishops who try to get around it or to promote a whole new idea of what we should be, We are the Catholic Church, and all you have to do is pull the catechism out, and it says what we believe, and that's not going to change. That's why people hate us. Our steeples go higher than anybody else. We have a morality that they don't want to hear about, and they can't vote in it. They can't change it. They can't put pressure on us to get us to alter our morality. We are still out picketing at abortion clinics. We are still out saying two men cannot get married. We are still out saying the whole LGBT lifestyle is a sinful, perverted lifestyle. And people are afraid to say that. But the Catholic Church has been teaching that for 2,000 years. And if I'm a Catholic, I'm a Catholic. If I want to be a Protestant, I can go back to my old world of being a Protestant. I'm not going to come into the Catholic Church and be a Protestant. I'm going to believe what the Church teaches, and I'm going to teach what the Church teaches.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's like I said, there always seems to be this double standard where people are afraid to cross the line. Maybe it's because of they're afraid of a tax-exempt status, something like that. But nevertheless, you need to proclaim the gospel and help the parishioners apply it, because that's what the gospel's for. It's to be lived, not just believed.
Exactly. And you can deal with those moral issues. You can deal with all those without ever saying Republican, Democrat, Trump, or Biden. You never even have to say those words.
Right.
And you can be very strong about what the teaching of the church is. The law, by the way, is for tax-exempt status, is that you cannot tell people how to vote. There's nothing wrong with telling them party platforms and what parties stand for. That's what we can do. But I think a lot of priests are cowards, and they will use that issue as a smokescreen so they don't have to. Well, I'm not allowed to do that. Well, they are allowed to do that. What they're not allowed to do is name political parties and encourage or tell people how to vote. There's a lot more freedom in the church than some people like to admit.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Steve, we only have a couple more minutes left. If there was a parting message that you would like to give Catholics who maybe are undecided and they haven't voted yet, what would you say to them?
I would say get out and vote right now. And remember that the pro-life issue is the primary issue. But the Republican Party is trying to save our country from socialism, Marxism, chaos. They're the party of law and order, of peace in the Middle East, of getting our economy going again, of working hard, dealing with the virus, religious freedom, all of these, and especially the pro-life issue. There's no question the Republican Party is the party of the unborn. And I will say this too, just like a pope's real legacy is who he appoints as a bishop, because they'll be there long after the pope is gone, who the president appoints to the Supreme Court is his legacy. The justices in the court will be there long after President Trump is dead. And he has appointed over 200 federal judges, conservative federal judges in the courts. And whoever's the next president could very well elect 2 more Supreme Court justices that will go into when my grandchildren are having children. We need to vote, and we need to vote carefully, and we need to vote pro-life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so there's a lot at stake, and also, like you said, it's going to last for decades. Which steps taken, and so yeah, it's a very important day.
And I've been putting a lot of these things up on my website at CatholicConvert.com if you want to keep up to some of these things and resources and so on that I have, but CatholicConvert.com, and I've been pretty vocal.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that's what I was just about to say. Where could people go to get a hold of your blog and all the other stuff? So CatholicConvert.com. Yeah, great stuff, Steve, and I really appreciate all the work you've been doing.
Thank you, Gary. I appreciate you and all the work you're doing, too. God bless you.
All right, and you, too. And ladies and gentlemen, that's Steve Ray again, CatholicConvert.com. Check out his stuff. Great articles. Just great stuff coming from Steve. And, man, the hour has flown. But never fear, Terry and Jesse will soon be here with the Terry and Jesse Show. High-impact Catholic talk coming at you. It's time for me to shut down the Midwest Command Center, turn off the dojo lights. Thank you so much for tuning in. God willing, we'll be back again tomorrow to do this thing we call Hands on Apologetics. Bye-bye, everybody.
In the 1990s, I lived and worked in Hollywood. But when my wife Betty's mom took ill, we relocated to Orange County. And it was during this time in our lives that I converted to Catholicism. Once my eyes were opened to the truth, I couldn't learn enough about the faith. But I had less free time than ever, especially with a long commute. That's when I discovered the real value of Catholic audio. Listening to cassette tapes transformed my daily commute into a miniature retreat. And that's the beauty of Virgin Most Powerful Radio today. Since the podcasts are archived,